let's look at some quiz. And this quiz is definitely very important for all of you, because this will actually give you a similar type of questions which you might get it in your actual exam. First question, it says, find from below an example of cross-functional team. So let's understand what are the teams which they are referring to. Major incident working group, the auditors, the network management team, service desk. So as we have seen, we're going to talk about responses via alpha, beta, Charlie, delta. So if you look at the cross-functional team, auditor cannot be a cross-functional team. Network management team will be a single team, and service desk will be also a single team. The team which is cross-functional, the definition of cross-functional itself is coming from a different area, might be from a different organization, and possibly from a different function also, because it might be possible that one component is a CRM, another component can be a Salesforce, or another component can be something else, maybe a infrastructure itself. But they work together to ensure that they align to the objective of SIAM ecosystem. So here, most relevant answer is major incident working group. They will be working together as a cross-functional team. So that's the answer. Let's look at the question number 2. Which activity in SIAM roadmap should consider segregation of duty? So when we are talking about segregation of duty is nothing but talking about you have a defined or established RASI, and this RASI is not conflicting each other's organization, not conflicting each other's role. So we have to look at that kind of activity. So let's look at the examples. Appoint service providers as alpha, define principles and policy for roles and responsibilities. Charlie is design process model. Delta is map the existing services and sourcing environment. So if you look at here, the important aspect to understand here is that they are talking about segregation of duty. So segregation of duty is more or less referring about how do you decide what kind of roles and responsibility and their principles and policies to be there. Because appointing service provider cannot be a segregation of duty, even process model or mapping the existing services and sourcing environment. So relevant answer is beta, right? So let's look at this and let's move forward, right? Third question, during which stage of SIAM roadmap the service integrator be appointed? So it's a very straightforward question. If you remember, there are 4 stages of SIAM roadmap, and we are talking about where, in which stage the service integrator to be appointed. So it is also straightforward. We have the discovery and strategy, plan and build, implement, and run and improve. So it's easy to give this answer. Discovery and strategy is all about at the highest level in the organization, what kind of discovery, I mean, as a state, and strategizing why I want to go for a SIAM business case and approval of those. You know, implement is more or less when I am into the implementation, that time even SIAM, I mean, service integrator is required, already required, I would say, and run and improve is more or less the last stage. So very relevant answer is plan and build. Let's look at the 4th question. Select the challenge related to integrating processes across service providers. So here, I assume they would have listed the challenge, and that challenge is related to integrated processes across service provider. So when we are talking about a challenge, so we need to also understand the integrated processes mechanism, and we are talking about service providers. So we need to also understand alpha, service providers are not rewarded for assisting other providers with their processes. So do you think it's a challenge? Seems to be, not rewarded. So it is basically could be a challenge, right? If you look at that, service provider do not share the process details. This can be more relevant There is limited accredited staff with the service provider. So this cannot be a challenge. This can be only a challenge within the service provider. We are talking about here, remember, integrated processes related challenge. There is a poor relationship between the customer and the service integrator. So obviously this is about the relationship, but again, A and B could be a relevant answer. Let's look at service provider are not rewarded for assisting other provider with their processes. So not rewarding is kind of, understood that, if I am doing something and the other service provider is doing something, and I have a certain type of a process or a specific process, other provider also have a specific type of a process. So of course, when they work together, there is nothing called a rewarding, right? It is expected that they are supposed to share each other's process. And since they are not doing it, the most relevant answer is beta, right? Because they don't share it, right? That's the challenge, because we are referring to integrated processes. Let's look at the question number 5. Which process can best help if customer wants to improve success from technology that involves coordinating the activities of several service providers? So if we look at, we are talking about here, which is the process. So first of all, let's understand they have talked about the name of the processes, and now they are talking about customer wants to improve and improve the success. So they have a certain level of success, but now customer is expecting, how do I get the more success or improvement on the success with respect to technology? And when we are talking about technology, of course, as you know, this technology savvy or technology kind of organization would be coming from service providers only. And service provider selections would also happen based on the watch process. It's a supplier or BRM. Project management is probably retained capability of customer. As we know, business relationship is more about accounting or anybody who is as a prospect come into the picture and they become a service provider. However, supplier management has the evaluation criteria that, yeah, certain type of technology is expected here, and that's where we are talking about to have a contracting with them. So most relevant answer is supplier management, right? So let's move forward. Question number 6, below driver group that should be included in business case. So what is the drivers? So if you remember SIAM drivers, you will be able to easily answer because they would have listed the drivers of SIAM here. So let's understand drivers of SIAM. Outsourcing drivers, type of service organization, service and outsourcing contracts, and service satisfaction. So if you think during the business case inclusions, generally you have a clarity about how do you think, by what kind of a processes, what mechanism my end customer or I myself will be satisfied. That kind of mechanism or that kind of information you have available. So straightforward answer could be D here. So outsourcing drivers not required to be added in the business case. They are irrelevant, to be honest. Service organization, you might want to share some information on that, but there is no possibility to talking about as a driver because type of service organization is not a driver. Services and outsourcing contracts. So this can be a driver, but not required to be added in business case because we are creating a business case to select or to decide SIAM implementation, right? So here, services and outsourcing contracts are again not relevant. Let's look at the question number 7. This is about a framework. The SIAM practices governance model and structure element can be mapped to which part of COBIT with respect to SIAM. So again, we need to understand, we are talking about what is there in COBIT and what is there in SIAM, and can we map this to each other, especially the practices and the governance model and structural element, right? All these three things can be mapped to COBIT with respect to SIAM. So which area? So obviously process description cannot come, management guideline cannot come because process description and management guideline management guideline kind of term itself is not there in SIAM. Control objectives are also not there in SIAM. Process descriptions are there in SIAM, but more or less reliable with or aligned to ITL, if you know. So only one thing which I could see is framework, right? So again, we have to really look at, and I'm actually giving you idea which kind of answer or what is the possible answer can be mapped to the questions. So we should go by that. Let's look at question number 8, right? And this is again defining the level of control and ownership to be retained by a customer organization is important. What is the risk of leaving this undecided? So obviously level of control and ownership is required, but when we talk about, if we have not taken care of it, right? So what can be a risk? And this risk can be written here. So if you look at risks are written here, it will be challenging to assign responsibility for service failure. Service provider may be unwilling to collaborate. The service integrator may be unable to perform its role. The success of SIAM program cannot be measured. So if you look at overall, there are some risks which are given, but if we do not, as a customer organization, if I retain the level of control and ownership with me, then what is going to happen is, first of all, I will ensure that, the service integrator and service provider will not be able to successful because I keep the level of ownership and control. Then what will happen is I need to again have the same kind of a multi-sourcing environment. But if I give a level of ownership and control, keep in my hand, but I'll not do a micromanage, I'll empower. So more or less, if that kind of things are not decided, then what is going to happen is service integrator will be directly impacted. And that's where the answer could be C here. The service integrator may be unable to perform its role, because rest of the questions are, rest of the possible choices which is given, they are more or less operational risks, right? And that is nothing to do with the ownership of control and ownership, control and ownership. In which stage of SIAM roadmap should be principles and policies for roles and responsibilities be defined? So which is the roadmap stages where policies and principles for roles and responsibilities decided? So again, it's a very straightforward question, and the answer could be discovery and strategy, because this is where you decide, at the stage policy and principles, because you define them during the discovery and strategy stage, and then later on you allocate, you provide those roles and responsibilities. All that would happen on the plan and build stage, maybe implement stage, run and improve stage. All that would happen. But definition of principles and policy of roles and responsibility would be decided at alpha stage, which is discovery and strategy. Select the example of structure element. Again, structure element, as we have discussed, so structure element is nothing but the overall mechanism of any organization who is an independent organization, and independent organization would actually referring to the independent service provider, service integrator, or customer. So here we are talking about the example to be chosen. So, more or less process cannot be a structural element. It is only relevant to, or rather mostly relevant to, the service provider. Process manager is independent. Again, it's a role. It's not a structural element. Technology is just mere a component part of it. So board is the relevant example here. Question number 11, which SIAM structure is most likely to use in resource augmentation? So again, how do you decide, resource in, out, and how do you really ensure that right resources are coming? And when you have to really decide, the service integrator related skills, right? Or you have to decide what kind of service integrator or particular type of service provider I will decide, right? So that time, generally, you have to decide what skills you have, right? So you have to look at, externally sourced, you have to look at the hybrid, internally sourced, or lead supplier. So lead supplier is nothing but who is actually carrying some work and you are making them SI. Hybrid is you are trying to get the information from some skills from outside and you have your own people. External source is no questions, it's irrelevant. So internally source is most important, because that's where you decide cost efficiency. That's where you augment the resources within IT organization. You decide to form up the SIAM organization. Coming back to the question number 12, right? So question number 12 is related to the process to be focused in order to establish and deliver end-to-end value. So here we are talking about what is the activity which is kind of, in the process, any process, who is trying to deliver end-to-end value. So process activities are just providing various activities. Outcomes are more or less talking about, outcome is nothing but when somebody start using the, based on the process output, that output is utilized by someone and they feel or they provide the feedback, that's called the outcome. So did they get a value out of it? Only outcome can say. So most relevant answer here is outcomes. Let's look at the reporting. Reporting is, giving you garbage in, garbage out. So whatever information or data which you have put it and based on the report would be coming. So that is again not giving a end-to-end value. And process tools are the tools which are enabling you but may not give a end-to-end value. So answer could be, as I said, process outcomes. Let's look at the question number 13. 13 is all about which role is accountable for contract management. So again, we need to understand who is accountable for contract management. Now, contract management is straightforward. We need to understand only customer can take care of it, nobody else. Executive board, service integrator, tactical board, these are the various components of a SIAM ecosystem, but they are not the specific organization, right? Executive board can be of customer organization, must be steering that, but you might have people from other organizations who are working, right? So customer organization is the most relevant answer here. Let's look at the question number 14. In the run and improve stage of SIAM roadmap, which activity provide an environment for collaborative working? So again, we need to understand the run and improve is the stage, the last stage of SIAM ecosystem or SIAM implementation. Here we are talking about what is the environment where collaborative working is possible. So if you look at managed performance and improvement, again, managed performance and improvement is more or less talking about, the performance and SLA based performance, and you have to really have actions to improve it. Monitor, audit, and compliance, then definitely it is not collaborative related thing. Operate governance board and operate management structure, that is kind of relevant if you see here. But governance board is again may not be possible to work collaborative environment, because operate board is more or less talking about taking actions, looking at the reviews, looking at the risk. So basically it's like a decision making, and decision making is objectively needs to be looked at. It is not about working with trust. It is not all about collaboration. It is not all about coordination and all that. It has all these underlying factor, but operate management structure is more or less very relevant. So I think we need to understand management structures referring to collaborative working. Coming back to question number 15, a service integrator has referred an incident to two competing service providers. So there is an incident which has been, come or investigation purpose given to, two service providers, and now they are supposed to investigate. So in this case, each service provider should do what, right? So they might make a complaint because that was not their incident and they are supposed to look at, pass the incident back to a service integrator that it is not my incident, or review the contractual obligation before even working on it. It's like, here contracts are more important rather than the relationship, which is again against the agile mindset kind of a challenge here. So we should definitely see is not the answer. Work together on the incident investigation. So if you look at even SIAM talks about collaboration, coordination, trust kind of aspects, right? So that's where work together on incident investigation. It may be competing service provider, but it's always good to work and ensure that check it out, because when you start working together, then only you realize that, who is supposed to look at or who is supposed to resolve this incident. So here we are only talking about investigation. So working together is a better option. Question number 16, right? So what is a good practice for creating a reward system for service provider to encourage, collaborate rather than protect their own interest? So again, we are talking about building a reward system for service providers, right? So obviously they are expected to work in collaboration. They are supposed to work and ensure the objectives. However, they should not only look at the collaboration aspect, right? And they have to protect their own interest, right? Obviously, but they should not only look at protecting their own interest, their own objectives. And it's like, since I have called the meeting, I'm one of the service provider and I will drive this agenda, right? I will drive the agenda the way I want. It is not all about that. It is about, I am going into the meeting. Of course, I have called the meeting, but I'm supposed to ensure that I have five agenda items to be discussed. And there is a possibility that you should really go with the propositions, right? That's where this proposition, collaboration, all that mechanisms, right? You really have to work in the relationship. You have to also work with your empowerment. You have to also should be able to say, hey, look, other service provider or service integrator or customer, there is a challenge here. I need a help, or this is not my issue. And you should be able to say that in black and white. Many a times black and white is not possible, but you should be able to say, this is not my problem. And this is the problem probably has to look at by somebody else who is looking into this component or looking into this particular type of a process. So here I have actually given you a scenario, but we are talking about here, creating a reward system. So how do you create the reward system? By looking at what are the factors you should look at, right? So do not reward internal team, since only external team need a reward. So again, this is not correct, right? This is about very, very, how do I say, very orthodox kind of a thing, which option is referring to. Focus on strict adherence on contractual performance and reward over delivery. Now, if we look at the contractual aspects only, then we are only going by a horse with the blinkers, right? We cannot only go by contracts based, or whatever is written in the contract, so I will go by that. That is not correct. Charlie, reward the behavior and do not just reward the results. So again, as I was talking about it, giving you various scenarios here, behavior is most important rather than key. Instead of providing results or updates or performance, you need to look at the behavior aspect, that how they really behave in a certain situation, because human beings become emotional or they try to protect their own interest. So it is inbuilt, but are they really keeping a cool? Are their behaviors are really not dangerous or really within control? All that mechanisms is supposed to be measured, and after measuring that, you'll be able to look at the reward system accordingly. Delta, use equal amounts of reward and punishment. Again, this is not correct. I think answer could be Charlie. Let's look at which mitigation does not address the risks associated with lack of trust and eliminating micromanagement. So here we are talking about does not address the risks, right? With lack of trust and eliminating micromanagement. So does not address, here we are referring about, the answer related to lack of trust and eliminating micromanagement. So look at adapting phased approach to implementation of SIAM, which is irrelevant. Careful design of SIAM, again, irrelevant. Establishing effective structural element and rewarding a good behavior. So rewarding good behavior, it seems to be aligning with lack of trust and eliminating micromanagement, right? So again, that can be an answer. Again, going back to the question number 18, what is main challenge of associated with cross-functional team, right? So main challenge of any cross-functional team is what? Conflicting objective, organizational strategies and working practices, gaps between process activities, inability to map end-to-end workflow, lack of architecture. So lack of architecture, inability to map end-to-end workflow, gap between the process activities. So B and C are more or less process practice related challenges. Lack of architecture is related to technology or technical challenges. But A, conflict of objectives, organizational strategy, and working practices. So cross-functional team, always keep in mind their objectives. And when they have to work with other teams, there is a conflict of objective because let's say my obligation in the contract written like I am supposed to only do a triaging of the incident. I am not supposed to resolve the incident, or rather I should not suggest the reward. I should not suggest the resolution. Not suggesting resolution or not resolving incidents, these two are different things, and at the same time triaging is written in the contract that you are bound to do it, but you are start suggesting resolution that is not written in the contract and you are doing it, so like becoming a conflicting objective. So what we are trying to say is you can suggest some resolution steps. That's where cross-functional teams value come into the picture, right? And again, organizational objectives, which SIAM has set it up as part of overall contracting of SIAM implementation, and working practices is also becoming a challenge because they all cross-functional teams always look at their objectives, their own interests, rather than SIAM implementation's interest or organization who is going for a SIAM's objectives. So here, alpha is the answer. Coming back to 19, in SIAM, the structural elements have several roles. What is one of these roles? So we have to understand which is the role which is more relevant in the structural element. Again, this is a relevant questions which has come earlier. Contract negotiation and pricing, of course, this is more or less related to customers' ownership. Manage contract exit, again customer. Developing maintaining policy is more relevant because we are talking about this role is more or less related to SIAM. Various organizations have to really go through this. They have to build the policy and principles. On that, they will be start working. That's where this come into the picture when we are talking about SIAM ecosystem. Select process ensures service performance meets agreed service requirement, right? So what is the process we should select who is taking care of service performance and meeting the agreed requirements? So change management, service level management, and project management. Project management is more or less referring to the requirement. Change management is also referring to the requirement. We are talking about performance here. Again, service performance meeting the agreed. So whatever as part of service level requirements I have agreed, based on that the service level performance would have been agreed, and that service level performance would have given some actual performance. So that's related to service level management. So that's the answer.